time traveler begins with a science lesson? Or is it just flummery? He gathers his friends around the drawing room fire to explain that everything they know about time is wrong. They are stock characters from central casting: the medical man, the psychologist, the editor, the journalist, the silent man, the very young man, and the provincial mayor, plus everyone's favorite straight man, an argumentative person with red hair named Philby. "You must follow me carefully," the time traveler instructs these stick figures. "I shall have to controvert one or two ideas that are almost universally accepted. The geometry, for instance, that they taught you at school is founded on a misconception. School geometry, Euclid's geometry, had 3 dimensions, the ones we can see: length, width, and height. Naturally, they are dubious. The time traveler proceeds Socratically. He batters them with logic. They put up feeble resistance. You know, of course, that a mathematical line, a line of thickness, nil, has no real existence. They taught you that. They taught you that? Neither has a mathematical plane. These things are mere abstractions." "That's all right," said the psychologist. "Nor having length, only length, breadth, and thickness, can a cube have a real existence." "There I object," said Philby. "Of course a solid body may exist. All real things." "So most people think. But wait a moment. Can an instantaneous cube exist?" "Don't follow you," said Philby, the poor sap. "Can a cube that does not last for any time at all have a real existence?" Philby became pensive. Clearly, the time traveler proceeded. "Any real body must have extension in 4 directions. It must have length, breadth, thickness, and duration. The 4th dimension." James Gleick, Time Travel, A History. Well, this is Darren Littlejohn. Welcome to episode 69 of the 12-Step Buddhist Podcast. How to be a Buddhist and be a sexual being in recovery. What are the views on that, which we will discuss. And we have practices of a Bodhisattva on number 26. If lack of discipline prevents you from benefiting yourself, then your wish to benefit others is just a joke. Therefore, to guard discipline with no longing for worldly existence is the practice of a Bodhisattva. There's probably not an area that we're less disciplined in than our sexuality. And I guess I'd like to define that as our entire scope of everything, including our gender identification, sexual preferences, hang-ups, interests, aversions, desires, what have you, anything to do with that, right? The whole sexual identity, so to speak, from the sexual point of view. So, discipline being a requirement of sobriety, a requirement to, say, work steps and practice meditation. It's definitely a requirement of Buddhist practice. We really don't get anywhere without discipline. You know, we have the meditation, we have the study, and we have the practice. And the practices here are laid out in the Mahayana, which is the great vehicle which encompasses the scope of all beings. It encompasses the scope of all beings, particularly on our path, but if we need to go back to the lesser scope and say the focus on the individual, which we really need to be a lot of the time, at least I need to be there a lot of the time in the day. So please don't misunderstand or get a weird attitude about this. Well, a lesser scope, greater scope, and that's offensive, and just shut up. I don't want to hear it. What I'm saying here, it's very clear, all right, is that we can use any aspect of the path when we need to. That's what you need to understand about the tools. You don't have to be in one pocket and put your blinders on and do that to the exclusion of anything else. So what I'm talking about, and what I've always talked about in recovery, is how my recovery is a dynamic interplay, between the aspects and the nature of my addiction, the nature of my personality, ACEs, history, score, experience, so forth, Understanding the play of all those dynamics, and it's moving and it's changing, and we're moving and changing. Didn't you notice? Time does not stand still. And we talk about this. If lack of discipline prevents you from benefiting yourself, even yourself, so if you're not disciplined enough to practice the 6 paramitas or the 10 paramitas, the perfections. I wrote a book on this called Perfect Practice. It's up there on Amazon. Generosity, patience, so forth. These are the disciplines that unfold and open us up like a lotus flower of compassion into our hearts to have the wish or the aspiration to benefit others. But if we have no ability to kind of restrain ourselves for a moment, but let's not make the mistake that we just restrain ourselves always and tie ourselves up in knots and stick ourselves in a pen somewhere. Right? We have to understand some things are restrained and some things need to be loosened up. Some knots need to loosen up and let flow. And the sexual knot is definitely a knot that needs to be let go. And the more tension and the more shame and the more self-loathing that we have around this, how are we going to enjoy ourselves? How are we going to give to others in a way that doesn't expect anything? And give to others in the sense of joy for the sake of joy. I'm pleasing you for the sake of pleasing you because it's joy for me. It's not an attachment for me. It's not a hang-up for me. It's just good, clean fun in a filthy, dirty way, if done correctly. Stole that from Paula Poundstone from many, many decades ago at the Saddle Rack in San Jose. Oh, my goodness. She's still around. At any rate, so to guard discipline. So that means, listen, you got to know if you don't got no discipline, you got to know, hey, hold on to this. I got to cradle this like a baby. Patience is my deal. I am impatient. I know this. I've looked at myself. I've heard feedback. I've done steps. I've done meditation. I'm very impatient. So what's kind of my main focus? Got to be discipline, that patience, bro. Well, how can you do that? Time is passing and I want what I need now and there's not enough time. It's going so quickly. Once I'm aware the time is passing, I'm in such a frantic, and we live this way. And I went to graduate school and it completely turned me into that kind of person where it's like your mind is just at all times. You're just grinding through. You're blasting away. And, look at our overachievers and everybody in culture and society. And obviously we have so much hard work and we have so much lifestyle to support. And wow. So to have some discipline around time is to kind of go, hey, okay, patience here means, impatience means I don't want to wait. Patience implies that I'm waiting for something to occur in the future and being in the now, being outside the time-space continuum. So we have the before, we have the after, we have the length, the width, and the breadth, and then we have the duration, as was read earlier in the time travel book. So when we have this awareness of time, you're aware of time, aren't you? Well, who's aware of the time? Who is it that knows it's 6:10 p.m., at least for me at this moment? Well, I'm aware of time. That means I'm not time. That means if there's an I, my awareness, let's just say pure awareness, is aware of time. It's therefore not time. It couldn't be time if it's aware of time. So it's a different thing. We're outside time, in a sense. So if we come to the space of sitting in eternity, let's put it that way. I like that word today. Sitting in infinite spacious expanse, open up to the heart and mind of the omniscient ones, practicing Guru Yoga, connecting with those teachings and transmissions, understanding that everything is in its real nature, unfabricated. It's not a clock thing. Time is relative. Einstein said time is relative, but time is relative. If you hate it, time is slow. If you love it, time's too fast, unless you learn to work with it. So we need to have some discipline for sure in all this. And if we don't, then we can't fake it really too much. Really. And that doesn't mean wait forever to develop. That means understand right now, have some patience. Understand right now, practice generosity. Understand right now, some mindfulness and so forth with these paramitas, with these practices in the Hinayana and crossing into the Mahayana. These unfold our heart lotus blossom of compassion. And then we don't long for worldly existence. We're not trying to, if we're not in this time-space physicality, then we're not trying to grab it. We're not trying to push it away. We're not sucking it in like a major addictive black hole vacuum. And we're not chopping it up and blocking it in Kung Fu Ninja, all the things that are coming at us, So let's practice a little bit of this. And if you really want to dig into it, you can look back to that Igor from episode 66. And you can listen to me, you can listen to others. It's just a matter of getting into, drop in to this moment. Have an inhale. Hold it in a little bit with your throat relaxed and exhale like a balloon going. Pause in the empty space and chill. Just hang there. Do that a few times. I'll just talk at my pace. You breathe at your pace. The technique is, I've taught this for many years. In my yoga classes and retreats, just breathe it in. Fill up like a balloon from the bottom to the middle of the heart to the throat. Fill up and open. Breathe beyond your body. Breathe into heart space. And when you open your mouth, open your heart. Let it go, but don't push it out. You're not taking a dump, right? You're letting it go. But think about letting it go from the deepest, innermost heart essence. The most subtlest vibration at the deep essence of whatever awareness this is of you that calls itself a you. And just pause and notice everything with global awareness. And then jump back. Hi. Who is it that notices? Awareness is aware of itself being aware. Notice that and chill. In empty space, no attachment, but we're not pushing away thought. We're not trying to vacuum stuff up to us. We are just floating, like really suspended and empty, yet aware. And then we can see ourselves being aware. This is a meta awareness. There are infinite layers. But this is a practice of being in this, kind of holding time and space in a basket, but not really holding it because there's not a subject to perceive and concretize an object. We're just free. We've just let go so much that we're just free of any clinging, really any resistance. So now think about that in this space and just bring up your sexual vibe. What gets you hard or wet or whatever you feel when you're sexually charged. Just notice it and don't move a muscle. Keep your back straight, remain in the meditation position. Notice your sex vibe, your sexual energy, your svadhisthana down there at the base. You know where it is, the secret place. Just notice it. Think about the one you want. How bad do you want them? Think about when you really haven't had it in a bit and you really want them and you're like ravenous and you're like really, but don't move a muscle. All right, so we're going to let this meditation go because I want to say something about it. All right, then have an inhale and let go of all this energy. Let it go like an orgasm just goes. Just let it go. You're not pushing, right? You're not taking a dump. It's happening, all right? So what I want to say about that is that's kind of the level you have to be at to use sexual tantra, and that's kind of the level you have to be at to be able to control your energy to the point where you're not going to fuck yourself up and jack yourself up. So people with aces and kundalini, I had like a kundalini earlier. I had a couple-hour session. I'm on another, I think it's a 6-day retreat. I just did a 10-day, but I'm really with this teacher following the instructions. It's like really amazing. So I'm doing this practice and I feel a little bit, I'm like, chill for just a second, because I know that the Kundalini's got a lot of risk for a lot of people, but not for everyone, but particularly people with high ACEs. Read Compassionate Recovery. Mindful Healing for Trauma and Addictions. This is how I've learned why my friends have died, why so many people, all the outliers have come to me over the years since I wrote the 12-Step Buddhist. Everyone who comes to me is kind of like on the outskirts of most of it, of the thinking, of the identity. Why do you think I wrote Compassionate Recovery for the traumatized, for people with different gender identity, LGBTQ, prisoners, inmates, people who just don't find it in, say, regular 12-step traditional. Maybe the refuge thing is a little bit too much, for them. I don't know, but I'm open. I wrote this book because it's what I do. I rethought recovery. I rethought addiction. I looked at all the evidence and I looked at my experience. And you should read it. And you should get a copy. If you're a clinician, email me. I'll get you one. Give copies to your clients. I'm sending copies of this book around the country. I don't know. Sometimes I send out like a dozen a week. To people who contact me who are hurting, and then I give one to a girl, and then I said, you find the right person for this, and she gave it to someone else who's, in this, and that's what I want. I want to reach the people. I want you to buy the book, but I want you to reach the people. So it's always going to be available for free in a PDF. Everything that I write going forward will be. But do that work. Get into it, because I wrote it for you. This is a rethinking. It's not totally necessarily all new information, but putting it together in this way, in this context, is a journey for you. Take the journey. Open the book. Read the book. If you bought the book, open it somewhere and read a little bit of it. I told an influencer that I gave a copy of the book to. I said, you know what? If it's too heavy, take it in the bathroom with you, and read it. Open the table of contents while you're on the toilet. Just get into it. Don't be afraid. Do some work. Really, we don't want to ignore this, because this is the root cause down here in the deep well of suffering. And this is where the Buddha is talking, and this is what we got to be able to let go of. But, how do you let go of what you don't even know of? Well, I like that. How do you let go of what you don't even know of? That's a good one. So getting into the sexuality of being a Buddhist, we can look at it from the Hinayana. Restrain the energy. Don't do it. Don't have it. Well, good luck with that. I don't know about you. It's a rough one. You can do it for time periods. You can do it for a day. You can take vows for a week. You can do your best. And there's lots of ways around that. I wrote a book called The Power of Vow. It's a stupid title, and I'm going to redo the cover, and I'm going to redo that book at some point. But it's all about vows. And you can look at what's required in that sense. And then you have your Mahayana, my benefit, my vow is really to cultivate the aspiration of bodhicitta to be of benefit to others. So if I'm just a fuckhound, and I'm like, rah, I don't care about anybody's feelings, and, hit pass, bing, bang, boom, then if you're being shitty, if you're being an addict about it, or if you're just a sex addict, really jamming on your addiction, really, come on, is it giving? Is it Mahayana? Is it great compassion? Or is it some fucking sick bullshit you're holding on to? Deep hooks. We have to learn to sit still with the vibrations within us, however intense the emotion. We're not stuffing the emotion. We're not stuffing the sexual feeling. But we are working with it. You can also transform it. You can also let the energy pass through you as a gift, as a blessing. There's tantric practice in that, but you have to be able to meditate to the point of emptiness and be able to work with your inner channels to get into the deep, the secret mantra practices. That's what you really have to do sexual tantra. I don't know what bullshit people have taught since the 70s, but I know what my teacher said about it, and I know what I've experienced, and I'm telling you, you can do all kind of stuff. Maybe you get better, whatever. Maybe it's more fun. Maybe it's a way to be more kinkier. I don't know. But if you really want to work with the energy so that you're working in empty space without attachment, without concern for worldly existence, and you're offering body, speech, and mind to the being in front of you, and that's your tantric yab-yum sexual partner, but it's your yab-yum infinite, coupling, that inseparability between emptiness and manifestation, that samantabhadra. That's a whole path, bro. Sister, people, it is a path. But you can dig it. It's available. I've written about it. There's a lot to say about that. The other thing about the sexuality, is if we're being generous, or if we're being greedy, if we're being patient, if we're being disciplined, if we are willing to put the work in to understand what our hang-ups are, do some therapy, communicate with your partner, understand your dynamics. I'm going to write a really cool book about relationships shortly, as soon as I finish the one I'm supposed to be working on now. I'm researching and kind of processing. So, coming. Speaking of coming, we're coming to the end of our episode 69. Puns intended all the way, people. Like I said, I'm a natural comedian. So, hey, was that a Freudian slip? Am I switching my identity? Hey, just being fluid, baby. Listen, I've enjoyed talking with you and sharing with you this episode. I hope it gives you some stuff to think about. And if you have questions, you want to talk about it, or if you got an opinion, you can call the hotline. The number I don't have in front of me, but the number is on the show notes. You can go to podcast.compassionaterecovery.us for all the past episodes. You can play them right there on the site. There's going to be more articles. There's the whole 37 practices of the Bodhisattva listed there if you want to go through them. And there's also a tip jar if you'd like to support the show. I just want to make a point of something. Since 2009, this has been a completely and totally ad-free podcast. If you listen to major podcasts, they've all got ads. I don't do it. I don't like the vibe of ads. If somebody inserted one somewhere that I don't know about, I apologize. But a little bit of support is awesome. Generosity is awesome. Thanks for listening. Hit me up wherever you want. I'm getting people showing up on my social media saying they're listeners, so this is fantastic. Share the podcast, share the episode. If you want to buy books for people, go to compassionaterecovery.us. Look at books for addicts. You can buy them for prisoners and people in treatment and so forth. Hey, listen, we're done. So peace out and namaste.